Hi guys! It has got to the point where I have more blushes than I have space to keep them. So I want to go through everything that I have here and see if there's anything that's redundant, if there's anything, basically if there's anything that I can part ways with at this point. So you can see that there's quite the mixed bag here. We're going to go through, we're going to swatch everything, compare peach blushes to peach blushes, all that good stuff, and see what we're keeping and what we are going to part ways with. I know that there are some Oden's Eye blushes that I'm going to be passing on to a friend. I've already talked to her about that, but I've included everything in here just for the sake of swatching it. So let's get straight through it. I'm going to go ahead and, what am I going to do? I was going to say that I could organize them by brand, but I think it makes more sense to organize them by sort of color family, if you will. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I will be right back. Okay, I said I was going to start by color, but I got overwhelmed very quickly. So we're actually going to start by finish. So I'm going to take a look at all my shimmery blushes because I don't tend to wear them very often. So I think that's a fairly good place to start. And we'll start right here with NARS. So this one is in the shade Tempted. And I picked this up using Shoppers Drug Mart points, and when it arrived, it looked very different than the images online did. And it's more of a highlighter, and yet it's got enough pigmentation in it that it doesn't really work as a highlighter, but it doesn't really work as a blush on me either. So I think that's a very easy one to say goodbye to. So we shall. And then I do have these three here from Oden's Eye. And they're very sparkly. They're very pretty, but they're very sparkly. And again, it's just not the vibe that I typically go for. Like you can see, especially these two, they're very, very shiny. Some really pretty colors in there. This one doesn't show up quite as shimmery, despite the fact that it's very shimmery in the pan. That one is the shade Peach Glam. This one in the middle here is Sienna Luster, and then that lightest shade is Roseate Love? I don't know how to say that. I don't know. Anyways, I honestly I don't see myself wearing any of those, to be honest. It's just not the vibe that I go for. This is a bit too deep for me, but it's one that I know is going to look really nice on my friend, so I'm going to give that to her. And as always, whenever I do these kind of declutters, I always like to just let you guys know that I do try my absolute best to rehome these, so I don't just like bin them unless I absolutely have to. Okay, let's move on to these guys here. So this Chanel one is, again, another item that I bought using Shoppers Drug Mart points. And if you're not familiar with that, it's just a drugstore here in Canada, and they have, like, you can exchange points for actually money off. So if you trade in, I don't know, 100,000 points, you get $100 off, something like that. And it really doesn't take long to save those points up. So all that to say, anyways, I got this blush essentially for free because it was purchases that I was already making. But I have had it for several years. It is getting dry, and I just don't tend to reach for it. So as pretty as it is, it's just, I like the color, I don't really like the finish. I just don't do shimmery blushes, so that breaks my heart, but at least I'm not out actual money. That's, you know, I'll take my silver lining where I can find it. And then there's this one here from Surratt. This is in the shade Flame? I don't know. Sorry, I should have told you the Chanel one that I had here was Reflex. That's the name of that one. I was on the hunt for a matte orange blush, and it looked matte on the website, and it's very much not matte. So again, I just don't wear it. So, I mean, even though this one doesn't really take up an awful lot of space in my collection, still, if I can find somebody who will wear it, so much the better. I'd rather give them the chance to love it than me selfishly keep it and just have it tie up space. And then that's going to bring us to the two bronzers from Bare Minerals. So this guy here is Kiss of Pink, and over here is Kiss of Copper. I will say straight out of the bat before I even swatch them that Kiss of Pink is far friendlier to my skin tone than Kiss of Copper. Kiss of Copper I have to go in with the lightest of hands and just sort of like tap into it. And even then it can look a little bit too intense on my skin. So I'm going to let Kiss of Copper go, but I'm definitely going to keep Kiss of Pink because I don't know if you can really see the difference in just how shiny these two are versus these ones. These ones, it's more of just like a sheen, like a glow rather than sparkle, if that makes sense. So I'm going to go ahead and keep this one and say goodbye to Kiss of Copper. Okay, so we're going to start off looking at red blushes, if only because I only have 3 of them, so hopefully that'll make it a little bit easier on me. This one here is from KVD Beauty in the shade Poppy. And then we have this guy here from Kaleidos. Now, unfortunately, there's no shade naming on these packaging, or on this packaging, so I don't know what it's actually called, but it's the only red one they have. And then again, we have another Chanel blush here that I got, again, using points. And this one is in the shade Rouge Profonde. So let's go ahead. You can see that this one has been used to heck and back. That is my daughter. She loves that blush. And I like it too, but like she really likes it. So this one, again, KVD Poppy. This is the Kaleidos one. And then this is the guy from Chanel. So they are very similar. This one has more of like a tomato-y kind of shade. The one in the middle is probably the deepest of the 3 and more of like a true, almost like a cooler sort of undertone. And then this guy is somewhat more sheer. Again, it's got a little tiny bit of a sheen to it, but nothing sparkly at all. But I absolutely do not need all 3. So what are we gonna do? Honestly, I think the Chanel is the easiest one for me to pull off because it does sheer out the nicest and doesn't have as much of an impact as these two. So I'm going to keep Chanel. I am going to give my daughter the KVD because she loves this, and my God, that kid can rock any color. And then the Kaleidos, I'm going to see if one of my friends wants it. I really like the formula of these powder products, like I really do. But again, red is just not a blush that I reach for all the time, and I'm never going to get through this entire one, let alone the 2 of them. So again, it's one of those situations where I'd rather have somebody be able to use it and love it rather than just hoard it and have it not be used. But I mean, A+ for the packaging. It is so beautiful. But this one wins it on shade and finish, or I guess sheerness or blendability. Anyway, this one wins it. Let's just suffice to leave it at that. So now let's move into the category that I have the most of, and that is orange/coral. I don't know why I've amassed so many of them. Well, you know what? I can explain this actually. I have received 5 of these items in PR. So these 2 from Kaleidos, the 2 from Orangey, and then this one here from, also from Orangey actually. So I am very appreciative for receiving PR, especially from brands that I love so much, like Kaleidos and Orangey. I love their products, but it does build that collection up really, really quickly. And again, it can become very overwhelming. When I received, for example, the Orangey collection, there were 6 blushes and 6 highlighters. So that's 12 items coming into my collection. And of course, out of those 12, not everything's gonna work for me. So regardless, I have got a ton of orangey blushes here. So I want to, well, you know the drill. I'm gonna swatch them and we're gonna decide what I'm gonna keep. So let's take a look at these 2 from Orangey here. So on this one here, we have Warm Sun, and then this shade over here is called Orange Sunny. So very similar. And one is definitely deeper than the other. So let's see here. This one is Warm Sun. And this one is, what was it? Warm Sunny? What were they called? Sorry. Warm Sun and Orange Sunny. My goodness. Okay, so I'm going to say goodbye to Orange Sunny because it is just way too deep. And for now, I'm going to hold on to this one, but we've got a lot of oranges to sort of swatch and compare. So this one is going to be a maybe at this point. So then another new blush that I picked up is the shade Butterfly from Benefit. I do see that they have made their boxes a little bit more compact, but like, why are we married to this box idea? Why? Just why? Anyways, it is a very pretty blush. It is a very soft blush and a very blendable blush. And I've been on the hunt for an orange blush for a very long time, like a truly orange blush, and this one hits the mark. And in fact, I like this a little bit better than I like warm sunny orange, whatever this one is, whatever this one's called. I can't remember. But for now, I'm going to keep both of them as potentials, and we shall see. And then we're moving more into the sort of corally kind of realm. So here is one from Surratt. This one is Brilliant. Brilliant? I don't know. Despite being Canadian, I was not blessed with the French gene. It's amazing how many people, when you travel, how many people just assume you are like innately born with this ability to speak French when you're born in Canada, but no, that's not the truth. Okay, I'm going to compare that to this one here, another one from Benefit. This is just a mini version of the shade Krista. And this is one that I have to use like a dual fiber brush on because it packs a punch. Okay, so you can see that they're similar, although Krista is far more pink, although it looks a little bit more corally in the pan. It's more pink than this one, so certainly not a direct comparison. I think I'm going to have to swatch all of them before I can really decide what I'm keeping and what I'm getting rid of. So let's just keep powering through this. Let's swatch the two Kaleidos ones here. I gotta make sure I've got clean fingers. So this guy here versus this guy here. Again, one is far more orangey in tone and the other is far more pink. I don't have anything else quite like this blush. And I really do like both of them. This one here has very, at least on the viewfinder, it's showing up very similar to this guy here, but without the sheen. But when I look at it on the arm, this is definitely more coral than this. This is more orange. Just not sure if it's translating very well on camera. Again, I'm going to just keep powering through. Okay, next up is from Dior, and this is in the shade Actrice. Ugh, why do like luxury brands insist on including this kind of nonsense? I really don't get it. This is definitely a more dry formula than many of the others. Not to say it's not a very pretty blush though. It really is. I actually prefer this over the Kaleidos in terms of the color. As unique as that one is, this is just more flattering on me. Okay, and then the last two that I think qualify as more corally / orangey. This one here from Odenseye, one of their fruit blushers, and this one is in the shade Ripe Papaya. Such a pretty color, this one. Quite similar to the Dior, but very, very pretty. And then I've got this duo here from Patrick Ta. I will say these blushes in the duos are much more pigmented than his single blushes. But if you're not familiar, this is a powder and then this one is a cream. And you can sort of layer them. You can use one versus the other. And if you layer it on top, I don't know which finger I used, then it can sort of boost the intensity of that powder one. But I have to say, it's not a blush that I ever really reach for. And I really, like if I'm going to use a creamy kind of blush, it's usually like a liquid blush. So I'm going to say goodbye to Patrick Ta. Sorry, Patrick. I'm going to say goodbye to that one. And looking at the rest of the swatches here, I definitely want to keep Butterfly. And I want to keep the Dior, but because Dior and Odin's Eye are so similar, I'm going to say goodbye to this Odin's Eye one, but keep, I got to separate them. I'm putting them all in one pile. That's not helpful. So I'm going to declutter over here, keep over here. I'm going to keep Krista. So that leaves these guys here. Oh gosh, this is hard. You know what, I'm going to, where's the pinky? Is this the pinkier one? Yeah, I'm going to say goodbye to the pinkier one from Kaleidos. I will keep the more corally shade, and I'm going to keep this, what was it, Warm Sun. I'm going to keep that one as well. And Surratt, where were you? You were right here. I feel like the way that I wear the Surratt shade ends up looking very similar. Oh my God, I'm so messed up looking at the viewfinder and like my directions are all messed up. The way that I wear this, I obviously don't wear it that deeply, so it ends up looking like any one of these, which kind of begs the question, do I need it? And I'm going to say no, I don't. So there we go. Okay, decisions have been made. We're keeping 5 of them and we're saying goodbye to 4. So pretty good. Okay, we'll be back. And all right, so now it's time for the more pinky, rosy kind of blushes. Some of them I'm sort of like loosely lumping in here because like this one here is more like an orchid purple, and I don't really know what category to put that in. So let's start there again. This one's from Kaleidos. I don't have anything else like this. I'm hoping that the lighting can do it justice. I've been fiddling around with these lights ever since I sat down to film this, but it's just, it's not a shade that I would ever like purchase for myself, and yet it's fun, it's different, it's unique. So I'm definitely keeping that one because I don't know that I've ever seen a blush quite like that, but for the right look, it works. Then let's move over to Makeup by Mario. This one is in the shade Poppy Pink. And it's definitely pink, that is for sure. I actually really like this blush, so I really don't want to get rid of it. There we go. Sort of brings like a redness to it, but not as harshly and not as hard to work with as an actual red. I actually like red blush. Anyways, there. Just your standard blush, but I think it's so pretty. Especially once it's sheared out on the cheeks, it gives that sort of like, I've been doing activity in the cold kind of look. It's really pretty. Okay, here we have from Vive, and this one is the shade Cherub. And this is one I can tell just by looking at it that I have not worn very often. I'm not entirely sure why not, because it is actually quite the pretty color. Definitely more of a rosy kind of pink than the other ones. On camera it looks very similar to the Makeup by Mario, but this one is more of like, I want to say fuchsia, but it's not like as bright as that, but it has more of like a pink to it. This is more of a purpley kind of rose tone. Definitely not dupes, and I can't make a decision if I want to keep it or not. So again, let's just swatch everything. Okay, this one here from MAC I've had for quite some time. This is the shade Pinch Me, and I don't know what it is. When I use the MAC blushes, I like them, but I just never think to use them. I don't understand. Actually, I mean, going through this process and sort of weeding them out should help with that, because if I have fewer to choose from, there's more likelihood that they're going to get used. This one has almost more like a brown kind of undertone to it, and I think that just makes it very, very wearable. You can see them peeking in the corner. I've got quite a few of these more browny kind of tones. So I might actually just set this aside and swatch it again with the others, because I think it kind of fits into both categories. Just want to make sure if I want to keep it or not. And then we've got this guy, oh geez, we've got this guy here from Huda Beauty, and this is Caring Coral. And it was surprisingly small. Like, it is a surprisingly small amount of product that is in here. This is only 2.5 grams. If you look at something like Makeup by Mario, this one has 4.4 grams. And MAC has 6 grams, and this one has the same price as those, so the color better knock your socks off if you're going to buy it, because you're not getting a lot of product with it. And this one, I think it might actually just be a softer version of the Makeup by Mario. Same kind of tones between the two of them. I guess actually it's kind of like if these two had a baby, that's the color that would show up. And then finally, we've got an Hourglass Ambient Blush. This one is the shade At Night. You'll have to forgive me, I cannot remember if this was limited edition or not, but each pan of these looks very different. Mine happens to have a lot of like the highlighter through it and not as much color marbled through it. And then I've seen others where there's a ton of color and not as much marbling. So all that to say, if you do buy one of these ambient blushes, whether it's this shade or any other, try to do it in store so that you see exactly what you're getting. It's very similar to the MAC, just a slightly more of a sheen to it. And I don't mind sheen, I just don't like sparkle. There's the distinction there. Very, very similar. All right, I'm actually filming this on my old camera and it tends to overheat, so that's a pain in the ass. I'm not entirely sure when it overheated, but regardless, I've made some decisions. I'm going to keep these 4 and I'm going to rehome these 2. So that then brings us to our more neutral kind of blushes. Some of them are a little bit pinker, some of them are more on the brown side. Let's swatch and compare. So first up, let's do KVD in the shade Honeysuckle. These blushes, honestly, they are so smooth and so beautiful. I actually really do like these kind of tones. They're just so easy to wear. And I'm going to compare that one to Wild Honey from Becca. RIP. I don't think that this is one of the products that Smashbox has sort of saved, so if I get rid of it, I'm not going to be able to replace it if I change my mind down the road. So I need to really consider my options here. It almost looks kind of like a bronzer on this camera, but it has enough of an orange undertone to it, like just very, very subtle, but enough to make it wearable. It almost is more like a peach kind of shade. Then I'm going to compare those to this one here from MAC, and this is in the shade Melba. And I was not like a huge MAC person back in the day, but I feel like Melba was one of their like iconic shades. And it's very similar to the KVD shade, although a bit deeper, a little bit more on the pink side of things. So let's go ahead with Makeup by Mario in the shade Desert Rose. And as one would expect, it is a little bit more on the pinky side of things. And then lastly, we have one more KVD here, which is in the shade Foxglove. I love the formula of these. It's just so smooth. No dryness to it at all. Quite similar to the Makeup by Mario. I suspect that this is the category I'm going to have the hardest time with because I really do like all of these. Let's hem and haw for a second here. Now I've got to put them back in order, the order in which I swatched them, so that I can more readily, good Lord, more readily compare. I feel like I don't really need both of these, but I don't really want to get rid of either. That might just be silliness on my part, but kind of is what it is. This one has a little bit more purple to it. This one's a little bit more dusty pink. Oh, you know what? I'm going to keep all of them. I'm going to keep all of them. I would, just looking at these swatches, this is probably the one that I like the least, at least in the swatches, but I know how much I like Wild Honey on the cheeks, so I don't want to get rid of it. And then this one is quite light. That's that first KVD, but in winter, it's absolute perfection. So I'm going to go ahead and keep all of these, as I expected I would. So Okay, I'm going to do a final tally and I'll be back in one more moment. All right, so here are all of the blushes, and shockingly enough, we have an even split. I did not go into this with any sort of preconceived notions of how many I was going to declutter versus keep, all that kind of stuff, but it happens to work out that I'm keeping 16 blushes and I am parting ways with 16, and then we have one that's moving out of my drawer and going into my daughter's drawer. So I have a hard time decluttering. I do. When I'm in the right mood, as I am today, it can be very effective. And I just have to wait for those moments to hit me. But as hard as it is to part ways with so many blushes, some of them I've received in PR, a lot of them I've paid out my own money for. As hard as that is, it honestly just gives these ones more of a chance of actually being used, because I don't rotate through on a regular basis, and there's certain ones that I reach for more than the others. So a lot of these guys over here are just languishing and not getting used at all. So whether they're in my house or that they're in somebody else's house, the amount of use that they're getting is still the same. So that's kind of how I justify it. But also, I like the process of going through and swatching everything, because it reminds me of everything that I have in my collection. So when I'm looking at new blush releases and deciding whether I want to bring one of those into my collection, I can really just sort of reach back into my mind and think, okay, I don't need another red blush because I have one. And so I do like this process, as hard as it can sometimes be. So now I'm going to go ahead and put these away. We're going to call the video at an end here. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, I ask that you consider doing so. But for now, I'm going to say goodbye, and I will see you in my next video. I can't wave with my wrist this way. I don't know what this is. Anyways, until the next one, just remember to be a decent human being. Bye!